A new Fox poll shows 44% of voters think artificial intelligence will increase income inequality in the next 5 years. Labour Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer joins me now. Madam Secretary, do you accept that income inequality gets worse with AI?
I don't accept that, Stuart. You know, the president has been clear that America wants to win the AI race, and the Department of Labor is focused on that. We want to make sure that we're deploying dollars to our respective states so that we can train and upskill and reskill the American workforce to answer the call. Other countries are focused on it. The president has said we want to win this race, and we're going to make sure that our industries are prepared. So at the Department of Labor, what we're doing is we have an AI hub. I sit on the AI task force. We're going to make sure that the future workforce knows exactly what AI means for them, and it's transformational, and it's going to create more jobs. And we want to make sure that we're taking out that uncertainty so that people are prepared and ready to go so we can meet those market demands.
I want to talk about the fraud in Minnesota. The amount of money stolen, originally reported as $1 billion, now it's $9 billion. Listen to what the prosecutors had to say. Watch this.
We've been talking for some months about the fraud problem in Minnesota, and I've always believed that if you speak the truth in a plain-spoken way, people can handle it. Minnesotans and taxpayers deserve to know the truth of the fraud. The fraud is not small. It isn't isolated. The magnitude cannot be overstated. What we see in Minnesota is not a handful of bad actors committing crimes. It's a staggering industrial-scale fraud.
Staggering industrial-scale fraud. Madam Secretary, you sent a team from the Labor Department to investigate. What's this about fraud tourists?
Well, unemployment insurance fraud is something that the American people don't deserve. You know, the unemployment insurance fund is to be whole for one specific reason, and that's to bridge the gap between when people lose their job at no fault of their own, that they can find a new job, and it's to bridge that gap. When you steal hundreds of millions of dollars from the American taxpayer, we need to find out what is happening. So I did send a letter. The Department of Labor, through the Employment and Training Administration, sent a letter to Minnesotans to say, we want to know what is happening. So please produce those reports. So we're going to send in a UI strike team to find out exactly what's happening on the ground. We will not tolerate fraud under this administration.
Was there this fraud tourism? I'm interested in that. I'm told there were Somalis loading up suitcases with dollars and flying to Africa to deliver it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to find out. And those are the reports that we're demanding by the 1st of January. So when that UI strike team goes in, we can do that full investigation and report to the American people exactly where those dollars have gone.
One more for you. The latest jobs report showed the unemployment rate going up to 4.6%. That's a 4-year high. You must be disappointed by that. Do you trust the numbers?
Well, when I look at the numbers, what I think about is that we saw a solid jobs report, 64,000 new jobs. The president has created more private sector jobs than we have seen in really a long time, and certainly not under the Biden administration, where almost 700,000 jobs have been in the private sector. Certainly, we have seen the federal jobs go down, which is what the president promised that he would do. You know, we're going to be in North Carolina tonight. I'll be with the president talking about, to the American people, how we're going to protect the American economy and the American jobs. So with more people searching for jobs, the unemployment rate can tick up because that means more people are getting off the sideline and finally wanting to be part of the American economy and this workforce. And at the Department of Labor, we want to stay focused on understanding exactly where we need to send those dollars to make sure that everybody has the opportunity at the American dream.
That was an interesting diplomatic move, I'd say, to see a 4-year high for unemployment is actually kind of beneficial and good news. Madam Secretary, I'm being facetious, but I don't mean it. I'll see you all very soon, I hope, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you as well, Stuart.
Sure thing.